to these wonderful folk at Torquay Rotary. And then, of course, there's another young gentleman that also has a role to play in what we're going to talk about. And for him, his thoughts were we should not live for ourselves alone, but for the joy in doing good for others. A young man called Arch Clump, which I know as experienced Rotarians, you will have heard about his story. And it was great to hear the mission of the foundation before, so I won't repeat that, but it is something that does encompass all that we can feel quite proud about and all that we can benefit from. So we are people of action in Rotary. We do things where we gather people around us. We're problem solvers. We like to share ideas. We like to see ourselves as leaders, and we really do want to make a difference. That's something I'm sure we will all agree upon. How we do it is quite interesting according to the perception of others. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. And I might have a few little ideas and provocations for you. Of course, we are part of the wider world of Rotary, where Rotary's mission is together we see a world where people unite, take action, create lasting change, and right across the globe in our local communities, and finally in ourselves. And I'll probably give you a few examples of that as I go along. Wouldn't be a plan without some priorities. And it's interesting because these plans don't just surface from nowhere. There's lots of research. And if you've ever been involved in some of the surveys that are put out there for us to give our opinion over time, you know where this comes from. So we're now asked to consider our impact, not just what we do, the difference that makes. We're asked to actually go beyond what we might have thought we should in terms of involving people in Rotary and expanding our reach into the community. We're asked to really look at engaging people of all ages, all cultures, you know, and really make them aware of what it is that Rotary means to us. And we're asked now, particularly after COVID, to really think about adapting how we do things and the way that we choose to come together in the name of Rotary. And this is a classic example of how this has happened, isn't it? The use of online gatherings to make things happen. The work of our foundation, though, has remained much the same. It's a combination of humanitarian aid through the programs that we can see there, with perhaps more of a focus on disaster response now than perhaps what it might have been a few years ago, considering what's happened, you know, in our part of the world, and then education and training. And again, perhaps with a little bit more of a focus on the Peace Centre work that's been done, again, because of the world that we're living in at the moment. But there's things to be proud of when we look at the impact of our foundation. $4.5 billion US dollars spent on humanitarian projects and education programs over the past 100 years, 4.5 billion. 362 million US dollars again spent on grants, polio program, peace centres, just in a 2019-2020 year alone. 2.5 billion children immunised against polio, and that will be more now. And since 2002, more now than 1,400 Peace Fellows out and about making a difference in terms of that area of focus. So how does this all come about? And we know how it comes about. We know about the ideas, we know about the passion, and we know about, through the foundation, the opportunity to actually secure some funds for the things that we think's important. And we have a fair understanding, I think, of the grant system. Me, more and more as I've grown in Rotary and learnt more through Rotary, but district grants that help our clubs fund the projects, smaller perhaps activities, local or international, managed by district. When I say easy application process, some people say, well, not always, Julie, but it is when you reach out for help when you're going through it, because I manage to do that each time I decide that there's an application process to happen. And of course, we know our clubs need to be qualified. And then global grants. these are the big ticket items, they're for, again, humanitarian projects, peace graduate scholarships, vocational training teams. And Leslie and I were talking this morning about our experience in vocational training teams, and I'll talk a little bit more about mine a bit later. So through the global grants, we're asked to consider bigger, better and bolder kind of initiatives, larger long-term projects. There's a minimum funding size to encourage that. Of course, all our grants and our ideas, and why wouldn't they, align with the areas of focus. Something I'm going to talk more about is the need for a community assessment and the benefits of that. And of course, for global grants, it requires an international partnership. But gosh, the world we live in now with online technology, that's much, much easier to achieve. And we need to have sustainable and measurable outcomes. And of course, the big ticket item, then when you say, what do you know about Rotary? Often people have said, it's something about polio, isn't it? So that's one thing that we can see over time has really garnished some understanding from people who might not know too much about Rotary. And that's just reminding us of the journey that we've been on over that significant period of time. And there's some stats there as of the 26th of October. But I'm sure you, like I, was quite concerned in hearing about instances of polio in New York and London. And I guess that was a very timely reminder, certainly for these two energetic, used to be young ladies in District 9800, who decided that we really needed to have a commitment from our district, and we had these wonderful t-shirts done where we're saying we are going to keep fighting until it's absolutely gone. And I think a lot of people would argue that that's just so necessary, not just for polio, but for what we've learnt through the desire to eradicate polio that is just as applicable for the pandemic that we're still having to live through. So I guess that's us, isn't it? But the thing is that the us that people understand? I mean, what is our reputation out there in the community? Are we a fundraising organisation? You cook those sausages, don't you, at Bunnings, Julie? Are we a humanitarian service organisation? And I know what we would say, and you know what we would say. We probably do a bit of one to do the other. But let's stop and think of how much of our time is devoted to fundraising and where that money actually goes. And let's have a think about what they call the Rotary brand. But to me, that's really just how people know us and believe they know what we stand for. So in our community, what do people think of us? Are we really understanding of what our community needs? Do they see us as responders to our community needs? Do they see us as people who can understand what's needed and get together and develop something, some action, develop a plan, develop a project? And is that when we do our fundraising? Is that after we've found out, like in Wyndham, that their homelessness can be a problem, that family violence is a problem in our community? And is that when we started fundraising for 12 months ago through our sausage sizzles in Wyndham at Bunnings? Sure was and sure is. And can we measure what it is that we're trying to do with what we know is a need in our community? And are we talking about that? And is that what needs to happen so that more people have an understanding? Because there are people out there who don't necessarily know all that we do, but they sure as hell have ideas around what they think needs to happen in their community and in a broader level. Now, they call them causes, we call them areas of focus. And, our areas of focus, our 7 causes, absolutely resonates with everyone from 12 plus. And I know this through having an earlier club in my school. I know what that age group believes is important. And for us to be able to grow our fundraising, I think we really need to think about how we reach within Rotary, perhaps more, but also beyond Rotary and Rotarians. So that's what we know about our donors. And here's some information for us all. On average, 66% of Australians give to charities, with an average donation of $106 per charity. Now, just imagine what that could be if they saw their most deserving charity as the Rotary Foundation, their charity of choice. So imagine the difference that could make. Because there's some of the very worthwhile charities that people do give to. But you know, when I go to my shopping centre at Sanctuary Lakes and there's some wonderful person there trying to fundraise and they talk to me about it, I say, what do you know about Rotary? And I tell them about Rotary and I say, what you're trying to achieve, you could achieve with Rotary. So, you know, Rotary fundraising, why can I say that? Because we know that there are 4 funds that we can contribute to in our foundation. The annual fund, which we're all very aware of, I think, in terms of what clubs do, and I'll talk a little bit about personal donating as well. The endowment fund that enables us to do some bigger things and through global scholarships and seek funds for that. Of course, the polio fund, and congratulations to you guys. Turning less than $2,000 into $12,000 is absolutely amazing. And with your permission, I'm going to share that when I do some more of these presentations. It's absolutely amazing. And then, of course, the disaster fund that's become, I think, so much more, people have become more aware of that since the disasters have actually hit closer to home. Now, here's my little disaster moment, I suppose. Look, I've done a fair bit of travel around the world, but in 2014 I went with a group of people from my district on what we called a World of Difference humanitarian tour. We went to Cambodia, and it's fair to say I went to villages, and this is a good example of something that wasn't too bad. It was so much worse than this, but I went to the remote villages and I saw the way the people lived. I saw that they didn't have water and the amenities that we just take for granted in our own homes. This is an example of some water collection that was done by one of our local clubs in 9800. But, you know, other than these sorts of initiatives, it was pretty dire. My club Wyndham, along with other clubs, contributed some money to create some water wells. So that was nice. We felt like we were doing some good there because we saw that we had to do something after experiencing what we experienced. My role in education has been such a passion for me in my life, and it still is, even though I'm not hard at work as much anymore. But seeing what these young people don't have and deserve to have, and being a part of doing a little bit of teaching in the conditions that they had. At that time, as principal, I would have loved to have brought some of my teachers over to say, you're doing it pretty well, you know, where we are compared to how some children are needing to learn. So that was my pivotal moment. And I came back with one grandchild at that time, about 18 months old, and saw what he could look forward to and saw what people born as a sheer accident of geography in some of those remote areas and could never expect what Ryder could get. And I decided then I needed to do more than just what I was doing in terms of thinking about how the foundation might work and what might happen. So I decided to do some personal giving. I chose the Paul Harris Society, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. It could have been any one of the opportunities. I'm never ever did it to be a major donor, but the way that I decided to give was $100 a month just out of my bank account. I forget about it half the time. It's just a few handbags that I don't buy anymore. And over the course of time, I've now become a major donor. And I'm so enormously pleased. And, you know, my grandchildren are so impressed that kids that they've never seen are getting what they take for granted. And they know a little bit about how Rotary can work because of that. So why would I do that, and why would I invest all of my charity giving to one charity? Well, I've learned to appreciate what it is about our charity that is there to be proud of. The administration costs, the community assessment that's required. You can't just go off and do something willy-nilly. It should be done a certain way. You know, the desire to have something sustainable, not just something that's done, you've gone away, you've patted yourself on the back and said, well, how good was that? Something that's there for years to come. I trust, because it's Rotary engagement in it, I trust the guy, Ritian in Cambodia, who guided us towards what we should do. He said to me, Julie, they can't have education if they haven't got food. And I went home and thought deeply about that instead of thinking I knew what they needed. I trust the way the money's organised, and I trust the stewardship and the responsibility that's taken by people who are looking after that money that I donate. And I'm really proud that, you know, this whole Charity Navigator 4-star charity rating that I didn't know anything about means that our charity is rated in the top 10 in the world. And I reckon that's something to be really pleased about. So I could have come back and said, well, I'll be in every Rotarian every year. That will be fine. And if you're not, I hope you think about it. I could have become a centurion and did the $100. I thought, well, actually, I might do that. And then I had been given, as many of us have been, I think, a Paul Harris Fellowship for work that I did in the club. But it was only later that I realised that that's a bit, pretty much an Aussie tradition, that actually around the world, there in many countries, people, when they join Rotary, they just take that on and pay the $1,000 US and become a Paul Harris Fellow. So I kind of was that. So the next thing for me, of course, was the Paul Harris Society. And I just explained how easily it's been for me to do that. The major donor, I doubt that I'll be giving long enough to give enough to become a member of the Arch Clump Society, though. So fundraising goals for 2023. I'm talking about this in my club as well, and trying to see if we can do a little bit more, but also respecting that, you know, times are a bit tougher now, and I'm on a pension now, folks. So what I can sort of think about, as opposed to what I was when I was working, it has to be kind of measured. But if we could think about, you know, we're going to give Paul Harris Fellows, is there one or two more perhaps? Ending polio, well, I can't possibly top what you've done. That's amazing. I'll talk about the Bequest Society in a moment, but you know, can we convince, and I'm going to try and convince my club to just give a little bit more. We're on a roll with Bunnings barbecues, folks. So if we can't contribute a little bit more by the end of this year with what it is we're gaining, I think that probably is a problem for me. I've got one new Paul Harris Society member that's just filling out the form, and it just came about because we've talked about how easy it is to do, and it's Pascal, and he's our club president. So he's really thrilled about it. He didn't know much about it, and it was just that I did a bit of a chat last week about the foundation and talked a little bit about personal giving and what that meant to the 5 of us already who are Paul Harris Society members in my club. And certainly I'm going to encourage more to be centurions, because I think that is honestly within the realms of possibilities for all of my lot, and hopefully you might consider that as well. So there's our areas of focus. So what's the plan then? If you know, we've got some thoughts about maybe increasing or supporting the foundation more, and we believe it's well and truly worth supporting, what's the plan? Promoting our causes, you know, our areas of focus, talking about maybe the recurring giving, the personal giving, and how easily you can do it. Maybe thinking about the concept of gaming donors beyond the club. Now, I don't know about you, but we've got some pretty great, not a lot, but people in our community, businesses in our community who will gladly give us money for, actually it's a Christmas bag project that we're doing. It never dawned on me before, but I should be going and talking to that guy, because he's a fabulous bloke. if he knew more about the foundation, he may want to do some corporate giving because he certainly wants to do things to help in our community. And perhaps promote and talk about and think about this type of fundraising and promote the benefits of how we can grow the opportunity to get funds for our projects by increasing overall the donations. Because in our district, there's an awful lot of money. There's 146 now Paul Harris Society members. That's 146,000 American dollars that's going in to help coming back to our district. It's not bad when you think about it that way in terms of what you give to what you get. I talked a little bit before about the bequest. I came back from Cambodia and found out about the Bequest Society, and I thought, well, hey, this isn't costing me anything until I'm not around. So I talked to my two sons, Lee and Luke, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about this. I hardly even had to justify it because I said, hey, Mum, we know how much Rotary means to you. We see the good it does. And we wouldn't say, why would you do it? We would say, why wouldn't you do it? And so I changed my will, a few weeks later, and someone will benefit. I hope not for 20 years, but someone will benefit. I wanted to share with you now, before I go on to the next bit, one of the joys of my life that's just started is I'm taking on a zone role, as Leslie said, but this time, instead of doing it on my own, for public image, where I thought, what am I doing? Am I doing anything at all that's meaningful? How am I making a difference at all? I'm working with a team of two other assistant Rotary coordinators, Pauline Stewart from your district and Jodie Lowe. And Pauline and Jodie's looking after 9810, Pauline, her district, and me in foundation, my district 9800. We got together and said, we need to do something differently. We know that there are people out there who are curious about Rotary, but maybe don't get the message that we're actually doers and we want to do things and do it well. They probably don't know because some of us aren't sharing as much as we could. And they probably don't realise, the ones that do know about what they want to do, that they can absolutely make it happen through the foundation. So we're calling ourselves the Dream Team, and we really want to promote that working together. So if you're going to have a club foundation plan that talks about hopefully a committee that possibly would have a foundation chair or polio or giving, whatever it might be, I would like to suggest that instead of the foundation committee, it actually becomes a committee of who your membership person is, who your public image person is, and who your foundation person is, plus 1, 1 and 1. And that you actually start to talk about how the three things connect beautifully to be able to get you to achieve what you want, with an increase in membership, an increase in visibility, and and the increase through foundation with some of the things that you might want to target. So a bit more to the annual fund, few more personal givers, bit more opportunity for the grants that would come, and Leslie told me that you do have your goals in Club Central, which is really fantastic. So if all that is what it is, what stops clubs and individuals from supporting the foundation? Now, this was me a few years ago. We should be just focusing on what we need to do in our community. Probably didn't know as much about it as I know now, or didn't. We hear about the competition from other charities, confusion, just plain confusion with people about what Rotary is and what does it mean and what's the charity bit all about. The impact of perhaps other things like natural disasters that people feel that they absolutely need to contribute to, and we should. A little bit about the Paul Harris recognitions, devaluing them as an award. Some people think that's the case. Some people would say it's too hard to apply for grants, so why would I bother? A lot of people used to say, well, we give our time, not our money, and that was me all those years ago. Now I do both. I'm still surviving and absolutely enjoying it at Rotary. Some people think 50% of the contributions are lost, but we know that's not actually the case. Some people think all the money goes to the states. And we know that's not actually the case as well. It all stays within Australia. So why would we support the foundation then? Well, it funds the work that we want to do. It belongs to and is managed by Rotarians, so it can be trusted. It actually focuses on 7 areas that it's hard to think of anything else that fits outside of those that we may wish to support. It's financially efficient and accountable. We're supporting our signature project. We're working on that, leaving a legacy of doing good in the world. And most people in Rotary, if you ask them why you do it, they say, oh, I just want to make a difference. I just want to do something for others when I feel like I've got so much. The donor recognition opportunities might not be your bag, but they are for some people. Tax incentives I used for the last few years with my Paul Harris Society that helped me with my tax. The foundation is part of our DNA and it is our charity. So, you know, why wouldn't we think about supporting it? So a little challenge for you now. I know you do fantastic work in your community, and I believe we do. But are we doing the work that the community wants? And so here's the thing, maybe we should all be just taking a breath, having a look at the community assessment tool document that's there, having a bit of a chat in Torquay, in your community, with people in your community, with the businesses that you know, with the not-for-profits that are there. I'd love you to go into some of the schools and talk to the student leaders in the schools and ask them, what is it in our community that you think we need to think more about and to do more about? And then when you've done that, come back and have a chat and match it up with what you're doing. Now, it may very well be what you're doing, but I can tell you now in Wyndham, after 12 months, we're a lot more focused now on family violence. And I can tell you now, every time we do the Bunnings barbecue, which is a lot of them, we have a donation tin there. I'm the one who talks about what their sausage produces or done, or the impact of eating their sausage. And I have had people every single barbecue come back and do a donation because there's so many people that are touched by that. So you can sort of learn from what we're doing. You can develop projects around that. And we're working with the Geelong mums now, believe it or not, and providing them with things. And we're working with refugees coming in. And we know that by doing that, we're supporting that victim of family violence. That's our overall arching kind of idea, if you will, for the last 12 months or so. And we're tying it all together with our Facebook page, trying to do some little videos and trying to tell the story and the outcome of the sausage that they're doing. And I have a hashtag, every sausage tells a story, that goes on everything we do and how we tell the outcome of the sausage. So that's just a practical example. What I want to leave you now with is that you can change the world with just 1 cup of coffee a week. Can you hear it, Leslie?
No, but I wouldn't worry that we can't hear it because it's coming up anyway. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry about that sound in that little thing.
Never mind. I'll get you to send me the link and we'll share it with our members.
Absolutely.
And we'll also jump on just, what is it? Donateacupofcoffeeaweek.com. What a great
Pretty well.
website.
I think the message is more that than the actual link.
Yeah. So would you like to just press the little cross on the share button and stop sharing? And I will invite questions from the floor, either in chat or pop your digital hand up. Julie, thank you so much for such a personal take on foundation and why you do what you do. We really appreciate your story. So thank you, and
My
thank
pleasure.
you. I wonder whether you could just for a moment touch a little bit more on the use of global grants for our local projects, because I understand that requirements changed just 2 years ago that allow us to use them here in Australia more than has ever been understood. And perhaps that links in with the development of the Rotary Foundation Australia website, where those two pieces, I think, came together at around the same time. Would you like to just touch a little bit on just the use of grants for our local projects?
Well, I think you and I both probably heard it together, didn't we, up in Canberra? And for me, it was like a bit of a moment as well, too. So, and I suppose the takeaway from me, we got a lot of information at a grants seminar as part of the zone conference up in Canberra. And I guess the takeaway for me is that on My Rotary, on rotary.org, My Rotary, in the foundation section, there's a plethora of information for you that if you don't know the fine detail, you can get the information there. So in terms of the Rotary Foundation Trust, that's something too that I've learned a bit more about it, Leslie, as I've gone along. And they do have a really good website, and I think the solution to that really is to get on to their website and have a look at what is offered there. But my understanding is you can bring together, you know, the ideas, the funding, and it can be maximised. Plus, through the Australian Rotary Trust Foundation, that they also have grants that you can apply for as well. But the fine detail I've not explored, but I certainly do intend to explore. But I guess the key message for me, and I'm still doing it, is getting on and finding out more that's available for you on My Rotary, because really, and it's much more simplified now in terms of it, it's almost a step-by-step process in terms of what you think you want, going in, finding out, reading, and kind of going from there. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can, though, Leslie, with that. But my knowledge is not all that much more extended than probably what yours is from sitting and listening to. It just felt like there were quite a few new things being thrown at us at that. And I know I took a lot of notes about go and have a look at this, Julie. Oops, you better find out more about that. So that's about as much as I've got to offer now. But I would recommend the Australian Rotary Foundation website to have a look at it and get in contact with them, because they're very keen for us to publicise it along with the Rotary Foundation, as I have done with this presentation. So
yeah, thank you. And one of the big takeaways I took from that workshop last week was that, and we had guests there from, so we had the foundation International Chair, Ian Risley. We had Deputy Chair from Evanston, Larry Lunsford. We had the Grants Officer, Steve Sundstrom, and his presentation. It all just made it so much more simple. They simplified things so much. And if I may, one of Steve's key takeaways is if we've got an idea for a grant, whatever it might be, email him first. Don't do anything else first. Email him and get his take on whether or not he thinks it will wash for a foundation grant, because he's the one who actually makes the decisions for our region. And he has shared with me, Julie, his presentation as a DGN. So I do have that if you would like it, but we can take that offline later.
yeah,
So does anyone have any questions of Julie, please, while we have her undivided attention? Okay, well, Julie, thank you so much. It was a comprehensive overview of Foundation and how it works and how we can all support it, what we can do at our club. I really appreciate you taking the time out to share that with us and spend some time with the Rotary Club of Torquay. And I'm going to hand back to President Ben. You're very welcome to stay on if you'd like to for any club business, or you're also very welcome to say goodnight and catch you on another date.
Thanks, Leslie, and thank you very much for the opportunity. You're my first ones.
Oh,
First ones and a new platform and we've all survived it. So I do appreciate your kindness and the smiles, and I would encourage you truly to have a think about that dream team idea. It sounds very quirky, but sometimes you need a bit of quirkiness these days. And I just know from the young people that I still work with that they are keen on Rotary, but they don't know what it means. So we've got to get that message out, and it can be done through any of those three things: membership, foundation and public image. But if they all come together, it's a beautiful package for people to know. So thank you very much, and I will go and get a glass of wine instead of the water that's sitting here looking at me at the moment. And good luck.
Thank you again. Thank you, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
See you, Julie. Thank you.